What if the most powerful move you could ever make in a relationship was pulling back, not out of anger, not out of pettiness, but from clarity, from self-respect, from realizing that chasing someone who's not meeting you halfway is the fastest way to lose yourself. When you stop texting and calling, it feels terrifying at first. You start wondering, will he even notice? Will he care? Will he just move on? But here's what most women don't know. Your silence speaks louder than any message you could ever send, because when a woman pulls back, everything changes. Not just in the connection, but in how he sees her. That shift in energy, he feels it. Suddenly, the validation he took for granted is gone. The attention that once felt automatic, missing. And that space, it creates tension, reflection, curiosity. But this isn't about playing games or triggering fear. It's about reclaiming your emotional power. It's about taking your energy back from someone who's been coasting in your presence. You're not punishing him. You're protecting you. This video is about what happens next. The emotional shift that takes place in him the moment you stop reaching out. The mental spiral he quietly slips into. And most importantly, how pulling back can reset the dynamic completely if you do it from the right mindset. Because once you stop giving to be noticed and start giving that energy back to yourself, the entire game changes. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll never chase the same way again. So, what actually happens in a man's mind when you stop texting, calling, or checking in? Here's the truth most people don't tell you. Silence doesn't go unnoticed. In fact, for many men, it hits harder than any long paragraph, emotional breakdown, or heated argument. Why? Because your silence creates a void, a space he wasn't expecting, a sudden lack of energy that forces him to feel what he's been avoiding. At first, it might seem like nothing's happening. He might not reach out. He might even look fine on the outside. But inside, the shift is already beginning. Men are wired differently. Many are conditioned to suppress, to stay emotionally disconnected, or to avoid confrontation. So when you were reaching out, checking in, or holding the emotional weight of the relationship, he got comfortable. He didn't have to think too hard. He knew you'd be there. He knew you'd text first. He knew if he went cold, you'd warm it up again. But the moment you pull that energy away, he starts to feel the pressure of his own silence. The responsibility of effort falls on him. And that's where things start to shift mentally. First comes curiosity. Why isn't she texting me? Is she mad? Is she seeing someone else? Even if he doesn't consciously say it, your absence forces him to notice how much space you used to take up in his world. Then there's uncertainty. This is where he starts questioning himself. Did I lose her? Was she more valuable than I realized? This discomfort triggers something powerful, reflection. For some men, this is the moment they start reviewing old texts, checking your social media, or casually asking mutual friends about you. Next comes ego tension. If he's used to being in control, your silence can bruise his pride. Not because he's deeply in love yet, but because he didn't expect you to change the rules. Now he's no longer the one holding power. That discomfort can push him to reach out, not necessarily with full intention, but to reassert control or confirm he still has access to you. But here's the deeper part, emotional memory. Once a man has had a real emotional experience with a woman, her absence has weight. Even if he acted distant or avoidant, the bond still registered. And when you go quiet, the brain begins to fill in that space with memories, with moments, with what ifs. That silence, it amplifies the emotions he buried under distractions. And the longer you stay quiet, not in anger, but in peace, the more that emotional static builds in him. Now, how he reacts will depend on his maturity and emotional availability. Some men will lash out, accuse you of playing games, or try to make you feel guilty for doing the very thing they once did, pulling away. Others will humble themselves. They'll reach out, they'll check in. They'll want to understand why the energy shifted. But here's what matters most. He noticed. He felt it. And whether or not he responds right away, the silence planted a seed, one that's growing inside his mind every time you don't show up. Because silence isn't about being cold or manipulative, it's about restoring balance. And once a man realizes that he can no longer rely on your emotional labor, He has two choices: step up or step aside. Either way, you win, because you've stopped chasing and started listening to yourself. Let's talk about the emotional triggers. The silent switches inside a man that get flipped the moment you stop texting and calling. Because while it may feel like he's forgotten you or moved on, the truth is men miss differently. And often, it's not when you're blowing up his phone, it's when you go completely quiet. The first emotional trigger is the loss of routine. Whether he admitted it or not, you were part of his daily rhythm. Your messages, your check-ins, your presence, it created familiarity. And humans, especially men, get addicted to routine. The moment that disappears, it throws off his emotional balance. He may not even realize it at first, but he'll start to feel something's missing, a kind of emotional emptiness that he can't quite name. Next comes the trigger of comparison. The moment you stop showing up, his mind starts wondering, is she talking to someone else? Is she done with me? And even if he's the one who pulled back first, your silence creates a new dynamic, one where he's no longer the center of your attention. That subtle shift can be deeply unsettling, especially for men who are used to being pursued or prioritized. Then comes emotional nostalgia. Your silence gives his brain space to start remembering not just who you were, but how you made him feel. An emotional memory is powerful. He may remember a moment you made him laugh, supported him when he was low, or challenged him in a way that no one else ever has. And now that you're not around to recreate those moments, he feels it. That ache, that's the beginning of missing you. Another major trigger, ego dissonance. When a man believes he can have you whenever he wants, your silence contradicts that belief. And that contradiction can be a hit to his pride. It forces him to confront the idea that maybe you're no longer emotionally available. And that realization can either make him panic or reflect. Both reactions, however, are rooted in missing your presence. There's also the trigger of emotional curiosity. Silence leaves unanswered questions. Is she angry? Is she healing? Has she moved on? This curiosity can become obsessive, especially if he's used to you always being emotionally accessible. The mystery, the unknown, the fact that you're no longer emotionally predictable, that's attractive. It ignites a sense of urgency in his mind to figure you out. And in that process, he's reattaching to you mentally and emotionally. And don't underestimate the power of regret. For some men, silence is the first time they truly face what they lost. They start to replay moments where they could have done better, said more, or shown up differently. That guilt doesn't always look like sadness. It might show up as frustration, restlessness, or suddenly reaching out just to check in. But at its core, it's regret disguised as casual contact. Now, here's what's important to remember. These emotional triggers aren't about manipulation. They're simply what naturally happens when a woman stops overgiving and reclaims her power. It's not about making him suffer. It's about giving him the space to feel what he couldn't while you were still showing up for him. And when that space is created, he's forced to choose. Will he rise to meet your energy, or will he fade into the background? Either way, your silence isn't just quiet, it's clarifying. It's the emotional mirror he didn't know he needed. And it might just be the first time he truly begins to miss you, not because you're gone, but because in your absence, he finally sees your worth. There comes a point after the silence, after the uncertainty, after the emotional confusion, when it hits him. She's really gone. Not just physically, not just that she hasn't texted in a few days, but emotionally gone. That's when the panic sets in. And trust me, this part isn't subtle. It's the internal alarm bell he never thought he'd hear. Because for the first time, he realizes you're not just being quiet, you've detached. At first, he might have told himself you were just taking space. He assumed you'd be back, that you'd break the silence eventually like you always did. But as the days turn into weeks and still nothing from you, his confidence starts to crack. This is where he enters panic mode. Emotionally, he starts to spiral. He replays every last interaction. Was it something he said, something he didn't? Did he take you for granted? Was it that one moment he thought was small, but maybe it wasn't? He'll start checking your social media more often. He'll scroll through your old texts. He might even ask mutual friends about you, pretending like it's no big deal, but inside, he's hoping to hear you've mentioned his name. Why? Because he no longer feels in control. And for many men, Losing that sense of control, especially over someone who once adored them, is deeply unsettling. You used to be emotionally available, reachable, consistent. Now, you're an unanswered question, a mystery, and that mystery starts to consume him. Panic mode looks different depending on the guy. Some will try to act unaffected. They'll post more, try to look busy, flirt with others to get your attention. But it's forced, it's reactive, it's an ego cover-up. Others will reach out with random messages that say everything and nothing at once. Hey, how have you been? Or thought about you today. These messages aren't about communication, they're tests. He's trying to see if he still has access. The key sign he's in panic mode, his energy shifts. He starts to chase the very thing he once avoided, connection. And it's not because you changed, it's because he's realizing you did something he didn't expect. You walked away without a scene. There's something deeply powerful about quiet exits. No begging, no breakdowns, no dramatic goodbye texts, just peace. That kind of emotional silence is louder than anything you could have screamed. And the scariest part for him, you seem fine, you're glowing, you're unavailable, you're moving on without asking for closure. That's what drives the panic deeper. Not just that you're gone, but that you're not chasing anymore. This moment becomes a major fork in the road for a man. He either doubles down and goes full effort, realizing he wants to fix things before it's too late, or he stays stuck in his ego, wanting you back, but refusing to admit he messed up, and watches from a distance while you rise. But either way, one thing is certain, he feels it. That void, that regret, that deep, sinking awareness that he misread the situation. He thought you'd wait forever. He thought you'd reach back. He didn't expect you to reclaim your power without warning. So if you've ever wondered whether he even notices your absence, let me say this clearly. He does. Maybe not on day one, maybe not in week one, but once the panic sets in, it's undeniable. Because nothing wakes up a man like the moment he realizes the woman he once took for granted isn't looking back. There's something undeniably powerful about a woman who detaches, not out of bitterness, but from clarity. True detachment isn't cold, it's magnetic. Because when you detach, you stop trying to force a connection. You stop begging for potential. You stop over-investing in someone who's still figuring out what they want. And in that stillness, something magical happens. You begin to glow differently. People often think that detachment means giving up, that it's the end of love, but it's not. Detachment is liberation. It's choosing yourself over the anxiety of waiting. It's loving someone without losing your identity. And most importantly, it's saying, I deserve effort. I deserve peace. I deserve to be chosen without confusion. Men feel this energy shift. When you go from chasing to centered, from emotionally entangled to calm and self-assured, it creates a polarity they can't ignore. You become the person they remember, even when they try not to. Because now, your energy is no longer seeking. They can feel you're fulfilled within yourself. And that's rare. You see, emotional detachment creates space. And space is where mystery, attraction, and reflection live. When you detach, you're not pulling away to manipulate. You're simply no longer available for breadcrumbs. You're no longer clinging to potential, and that boundary is wildly attractive. Not just romantically, but energetically. Think about it. When you were overextending yourself, texting first every time, worrying if he liked you back, you were giving. And while your intentions were pure, the energy imbalance was real. He didn't have to invest. He didn't have to choose you, because you were already doing all the emotional labor. But detachment reverses the dynamic. It says, I know my worth, and I'm not afraid of your absence. And that hits different. That confidence, that peace, that grace under pressure, it's magnetic because it shows you are no longer emotionally dependent on someone else's inconsistency. And here's where it gets even deeper. Detachment is powerful because it's unpredictable. He doesn't know what you're thinking. He doesn't know what you'll do next. He can't rely on your old patterns anymore. That emotional predictability is gone, and now he's intrigued, not just by your silence, but by the fact that he no longer has access to your emotional energy like he used to. You become the one that got away, not because you left, but because you evolved. And that evolution, that self-focus, it doesn't go unnoticed. Whether he says it out loud or not, he feels the absence of your attention. He notices you're not watching his stories. You're not texting good morning. You're not responding with urgency. And that unavailability pulls him in. But here's the truth. The goal of detachment isn't to get him back. The goal is to get yourself back. And in doing so, you naturally become more attractive, not just to him, but to everyone. Your energy becomes lighter, your standards become clearer, and your life begins to reflect someone who chooses herself first. Every time. Because the most magnetic woman in the room isn't the loudest, the prettiest, or the most available. She's the one who knows she doesn't need to chase what's meant for her. She embodies peace, she walks in purpose, she lets go, not because she doesn't care, but because she finally realized she's the prize. And when that clicks for you, everything changes. Will he reach out? It's the question that lingers in your chest every time you resist the urge to text him. It echoes in the silence between his last message and your current overthinking. And honestly, it's one of the hardest questions to sit with, because it's about hope. It's about wondering if your absence matters to him the way his silence is starting to matter to you. So let's break it down truthfully. Yes, he may reach out, but not always for the reasons you think. Men often don't react immediately when a woman pulls back. At first, it might look like they don't care at all. But what's actually happening is that your silence is working its way into their awareness, slowly. Remember, men aren't typically conditioned to sit with emotional discomfort. They avoid it, they distract themselves. But the longer the silence stretches, the louder the discomfort gets. If there was a genuine connection between you, shared vulnerability, emotional intimacy, or even just consistent effort on your part, he's going to feel the shift. And he might reach out, but not necessarily because he's ready to offer commitment. Often, he'll test the waters first. Hey, have you been message? A reaction to your story, a random meme you both used to laugh about. These aren't just casual hellos, they're signals, probes. What he's really asking is, do I still have access to you? And this is where you have to be wise. Because just because he reaches out doesn't mean he's changed. Some men reach out to soothe their ego. Some reach out because they feel your energy pulling away and it scares them. Some reach out because they miss the emotional comfort you used to give without being ready to reciprocate it. And yes, some reach out because they realize they've made a mistake. They see your worth now that you're no longer handing it to them. But the important thing to ask is not, will he reach out? It's, why would I let him back in? You see, the silence, the distance, it isn't just about him missing you. It's about you seeing clearly. You've had time to heal, to breathe, to see the situation for what it really is. And in that space, your perspective changes. What once felt like deep connection may start to feel like a lesson. What once felt like love may now look like a pattern you're ready to outgrow. So yes, he might reach out, but don't just wait for it like your happiness depends on it. Instead, shift the focus. Ask yourself, if he texted me today, would it change how I feel about myself? Would his message add value to my life or pull me back into confusion? Do I want the version of him that left me guessing? Because when you focus on your healing, when you create peace in your own world, his return no longer holds the same weight. You're no longer waiting to be chosen. You've already chosen yourself. And ironically, that's when they usually come back. Not because you chased, not because you begged, but because your absence showed him what your presence truly meant. Still, don't live your life on pause, waiting for that moment. Live it forward. Build a life so full, so magnetic, that whether he reaches out or not, you're already moving in the right direction. Because the truth is, you don't need a text to validate your worth. You just need to remember who you were before you forgot what you deserve. So he finally responds after days, maybe weeks of silence. You see his name pop up. Your heart skips a beat. Your mind races. What does this mean? Why now? Is he finally ready? But before you reply, pause. Because what you do next will either reinforce your power or hand it right back to him. Let's get into what not to do when he finally reaches out. Don't respond immediately. You're not playing games. You're protecting your energy. When you respond too quickly, especially after he's taken his sweet time, it signals that your emotional door was wide open the whole time, that no matter how long he ignored you, you were just waiting. And that's not attractive. It's confirming his belief that he can have you whenever he wants without effort. Take a breath, give it space, let him wonder. Don't let your emotions lead the conversation. It's tempting to unload, to say everything you've been holding back, to ask, why did you disappear, or do you even care? But this often leads to one-sided conversations, where you're seeking answers from someone who may not be emotionally capable of giving them. Instead of demanding explanations, observe his energy. Let him show you what his true intentions are. Actions speak louder than emotionally reactive messages. Don't assume he's back for good. Just because he messaged you doesn't mean he's ready for a relationship. Don't mentally fast forward to getting back together. A lot of men return out of curiosity, guilt, boredom, or ego, not necessarily because they've had some life-changing realization. So take it slow, stay grounded, ask yourself, what has changed since we last talked? Don't reward breadcrumbs. If he sends a casual hey or a meme after vanishing for weeks, don't treat it like a grand gesture. Don't rush to re-engage, validate, or give him emotional access. A simple message is not proof of effort. A few emojis are not a comeback. You're looking for consistency, not convenience. Don't fall back into old patterns. This is where a lot of women get pulled back in. He shows up and you pick up right where you left off. Deep conversations, late night phone calls, maybe even physical connection. But if nothing has changed, if there's still no clarity, no commitment, no growth, you're just repeating the same emotional cycle, and it'll hurt more the second time. Don't over-explain yourself. You don't owe a play-by-play of where you've been or how you've been feeling during the no-contact period. Maintain some mystery, and you don't need to fill the silence with long emotional paragraphs. Keep it short, clear, and confident. If he's serious, he'll ask. If he's not, you'll feel it. Don't base your self-worth on his response. Whether he comes back with full energy or half-hearted effort, it says more about him than it does about you. Don't take it personally if his message feels off or inconsistent. That's not a reflection of your value. That's just who he is. Your worth was never tied to his ability to communicate. Here's the truth. When you've done the work to detach, to focus on yourself, to rebuild your peace, you're not the same woman he walked away from. And that means you don't have to respond the same way you used to. So if he reaches out, don't rush in, don't beg, don't chase, and definitely don't settle. Let him earn his way back into your life if he's capable of showing up as the version you deserve. And if he's not, let the message be the closure. Because a response from him doesn't mean it's time to open the door. Sometimes it's just confirmation that you closed it at the right time. When the dynamic between you and a man begins to shift, whether he's texting again, showing interest, or suddenly acting different, the key isn't just to celebrate the change. It's to stay in control of your role in that shift. Because here's the truth. Power in relationships doesn't come from controlling someone else. It comes from controlling your response, your boundaries, and your self-worth. Staying in control of the dynamic doesn't mean being cold or distant. It means you remain grounded, no matter what he does. If he texts you, great. You don't drop everything to respond. You match his effort, not exceed it. You don't rearrange your schedule for a late night what's up. You're showing, not telling, that access to you has conditions now. That's not playing hard to get. That's having standards. Staying in control means you're no longer afraid to disappoint him. You're no longer walking on eggshells trying to be cool enough or low maintenance enough. You don't need to prove how chill you are. You need to be authentic. If something doesn't feel right, you don't laugh it off. You address it or step away, because that's what emotionally secure women do. One of the biggest mistakes women make when a man returns is slipping right back into old habits. You start texting first again. You prioritize him. You give him all the emotional labor just to keep him around. But that energy, that's how you lose your power. So how do you stay in control? First, don't assume anything has changed. Words are easy. I miss you, you've been on my mind, or let's hang out soon. Those are just sounds. Real change shows up in behavior. Let his actions speak before you emotionally reinvest. Don't project potential onto him. See him for who he is now. Second, set the pace. You don't have to match his urgency. If he's love bombing after being distant, that's a red flag, not a romance story. You're allowed to take your time. Make him meet your rhythm. Don't be rushed. The more secure you are in your timeline, the more you control the pace of the entire dynamic. Third, keep your world full. Don't abandon your hobbies, your friendships, or your personal growth just because he's giving you attention again. Keep doing what you were doing when he wasn't around, because that's the energy that made you magnetic in the first place. If you lose yourself again, you'll lose the balance. Fourth, use silence as a strategy. Not every message deserves a reply. Not every call deserves a call back. Sometimes your best response is no response, especially if he's testing boundaries or being inconsistent. You're allowed to say, this version of you doesn't get access to me. And lastly, remember who you are. You're not someone waiting to be chosen. You're someone choosing who gets to stay. You've done the work. You've detached. You've grown. That version of you doesn't chase, doesn't settle, and doesn't shrink to fit someone else's comfort zone. Staying in control of the dynamic means you're no longer reacting, you're responding with intention. It means you're no longer driven by fear of loss, but by a deep trust in your own value. So when he returns, when the messages start coming in, when the energy shifts, don't fall for the performance. Watch for the pattern. Stay calm. Stay centered. Because the most powerful position you can be in isn't proving your worth. It's knowing you don't have to. Silence isn't weakness. It's not giving up. It's not passive. Silence is power. In a world where we're conditioned to over-explain, to prove ourselves, to fix things that we didn't even break, choosing silence is an act of self-respect. It says, I don't chase clarity from people who cause confusion. It says, I trust that what's meant for me will never require begging. When you stop texting him, when you stop calling, when you stop overcompensating for his emotional absence, it's not punishment, it's protection. You're not trying to make him feel your loss. You're reminding yourself of your value. And that's a shift no one can ignore. Men notice when your energy pulls back, when your validation, your attention, your emotional labor are no longer freely given. Silence is not emptiness, it's space. And in that space, he has to reflect on what he had, on what he lost, on whether he ever really appreciated what you gave so freely. But more importantly, you get to reflect too. Silence gives you time to come back to yourself, to remember who you were before the overthinking, the people-pleasing, the emotional chasing. It helps you rebuild your intuition. And from that place, you stop settling for breadcrumbs. You stop wondering if you're too much and start realizing how rare your heart actually is. So if you're in a place right now where you're choosing silence, not as revenge, but as peace, know this, you're not losing him, you're finding you. You're reclaiming the parts of yourself you gave away trying to be enough for someone who couldn't see it. And that energy, that quiet confidence, that's what makes you unforgettable. Because at the end of the day, love shouldn't feel like waiting in silence for someone to choose you. It should feel like someone is running through the noise just to meet you in your peace. And until that person shows up, keep choosing your silence. Keep choosing your power. Because the loudest statement you'll ever make is the one where you say nothing at all and still walk away with your head high.